Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another Unforgettable Experience live show. I'm excited today to be with my friend, my colleague, kind of a mentor, and we've worked together in so many different capacities. But Shawn Quintero has been with me and been part of social media marketing world for a few years. We've known each other, probably 7, 8 years, maybe something
Yeah,
like that.
quite a while. I know I've done like 5 social media marketing worlds, and so it's been quite a ride.
So Shawn's what I like to call an overnight long-term success because you came to us from the church world and were working with us on the conference while you still had a church job. And then somewhere along the way, you started the side hustle that has really kind of blown up and become a main thing for you, so much so that you're now like the coach's coach and you're a consultant in a lot of different industries. And I think at one point you were a CMO for an AI company, but maybe tell everybody how you would describe yourself, Shawn. Who is Shawn Quintero?
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur who's in love with the idea of coaching. I think that coaches change the world, and when you are able to show up powerfully and help your client show up powerfully, it changes everything about their future. You shift trajectory. So I absolutely love got started with the coaching industry. I came from the church world as a media producer, ended up doing a lot of event production, one being with Social Media Examiner, doing social media marketing world, and was able to pull some of my experience from the church world, working with mega churches and their conferences to the marketing conferences and these business events. And it was at these business events that I got an opportunity to learn from incredible experts. And incredible people hands on. One being Phil Mershon, and got an opportunity to really uncover a lot of what it takes to run a business and not just a ministry. I 100% was that like poor church employee who was like absolutely all in. And if you've ever worked in ministry or church, you 100% know what I was talking about. I worked unpaid for 2 years as an intern, and then got paid very low wage, but really passionate about what I was doing in my very early 20s as a full-time media producer. And so I made a decision and kind of felt this draw towards the business world and started my very first business, which was a marketing agency. And that totally flopped. Didn't know what I was doing, had no idea what I was doing. And then I said, okay, you know what? Instead of doing marketing, I'm going to go be a web developer and a graphic designer because I had some skill set there. And that lasted for about 2 months. And I probably went through like 5 or 6 different businesses until I landed on sales. And what I discovered was I was really good at teaching sales. And so I started to do some consulting and coaching around sales, specifically with coaches who are really passionate about what they do, but don't understand how to put the business hat on. And so I started becoming a kind of a coach around sales, ended up building my sales practice and becoming a silent owner of my coaching practice. It's called Abundance Worldwide. And now I have executive coaches. I have a whole team behind us that does a lot of the work. And I'm just kind of the visionary CEO there, and became a serial entrepreneur where now I'm invested in a variety of different industries from real estate to software and coaching. And so I get the fun opportunity now to be a dad of an 18-month-old, and I'm married to my childhood sweetheart, and now just get to have a lot of fun with a lot of the consulting that I do, building events, specifically launch and conversion events that generate revenue, generate clientele, generate loyal fans, and do a lot of the things that I love, which is coaching. So
That's an amazing story. And by the way, the birds that you hear in the background, folks, are echoing and singing praise to Shawn for all the work that he's doing. Shawn, you might want to take a quick look at your settings and make sure that your AirPods are the ones that are being used and not some other microphone. So, Shawn, I've seen you in action in so many of those different things that you've done along the way, and you have all those skill sets, but it really has become obvious that you love helping people change their lives through coaching and through the different event experiences that you create. And I've had a chance to be part of one of those, an online mastermind that you were doing. But I would love to hear you talk about the role of events within your coaching business in particular. Like why are events important to you, and what place does it play within the business, and what place does it play in the transformation process?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely answer that from like the conversion perspective. One of the things I would say though, like let's just get deep psychology, is growing up, I never felt like I belonged anywhere.
Mm,
Growing up in high school, I felt bullied a ton. There was a point where I wanted to unalive myself, and there was a lot of difficulty in just feeling like I had a community that loved me. And it was the moment where I found really kind of a church community where they did events, and I found so much joy in running those events. And so that sense of belonging, that sense of community, that sense of like just connection where you're locking arms and you're saying, you know, in life, we're going to do life together. No matter what happens, we're in this, in the high highs and the low lows, we're in this. That's where my desire to create events came from. And in the coaching space, one thing I believe is that you actually don't sell the concept of coaching, you sell the experience of coaching.
mm,
And because when you're coaching someone and you say, we're going to hop on a call and I'm going to coach you and it's going to be powerful and awesome, and like they don't understand that. But when you get into an actual coaching session and experience, and you ask a powerful question that makes someone say, oh, I've never considered life that way, or wow, that's a really bold question, nobody's ever asked me that question before, and it gets people into thinking about life and thinking about business in a completely unique way. That's when magic happens. And if there's anything that I can attribute to any level of any success that I've ever experienced, it's this one principle that when you get into the right rooms with the right people talking about the right things, there's magic that is inevitable. Magic happens. And so what I've discovered with our events, specifically with our coaching practice, is we like creating first class for world class, first class white glove experiences, so that when people come to our events, they say, wow, that is something I will remember and cherish forever. And it'll be kind of this milestone moment in my life where there was a line drawn in the sand, and I'm different from before that event to after that event. I'm completely different. I'm going to show up in my business different. I'm going to show up to my clients different. I'm going to show up to my family different. And there's things you can do over Zoom and do over webinars and do over, like phone conversations. But when you're in person, you can touch people and there's like that camaraderie. There's nothing like it. So what we've seen is events are kind of have been and served as an accelerant to our revenue and our client acquisition and our lead generation, but it's created loyal fans for those events. We sell out we do retreats. We sell out our retreats within 2 months of launching it. And we launch it 10 months in advance. So like they sell out really fast. And they're higher end, high level, high ticket retreats. So it's because of the emphasis we put on getting the right people in the right rooms, talking about the right things. And it's that magic that can only be created in those moments.
So you said it converts revenue wise, but I think I also heard you imply that it increases the likelihood of life change. Is that right?
Yes. And like we go in not with the intention of, well, this is just a revenue play for us or like a launch play for us. 100% what I've noticed is that when we get in the right rooms, we do a lot of deep psychology and deep body work, subconscious priming and reprogramming work at our retreats. Because we believe the body informs your mind way more than your mind informs your body. So we do a lot of body work and mindset work. And so people literally walk differently. They show up differently. Their shoulders are back. Their heads are lifted a little bit higher and more confidently after leaving our event because we do a lot of that deep inner psychology work. A lot of the people that we attract are at the higher end of 250 to $500,000 in annual revenues, and they're looking to hit those seven figures. And what we've discovered specifically with working with that clientele is that it's almost never a tactical issue. It's
Mm.
almost always a psychology issue. It's they know what to do, but for some
Yep.
reason they're not showing up. And so we do a lot of that at our retreats.
I think most of us, no matter where we are in our business, because even when you were that poor church employee, you had a mindset issue, and I've had that too. There's a
Yeah.
welfare mindset, almost like this is just all I'm going to be able to do. I'm never
Yeah.
going to be able to break out of this. This is just the life that's been given to me. And I think every stage you go to, I've seen John Acuff talk about this in his books,
Yeah.
where you hit this ceiling and you think that's it. you can't get past it. And then it takes
Yeah.
someone, usually an experience, a coach, something that helps you break past that and realize, oh, I can go to another level. So I love that.
Yeah.
Why is a white glove experience so important to creating the sense of belonging, to creating the atmosphere where that change is going to happen? Because you don't have to do that. You could just make it good, but white glove means something specific to you. But answer the why first, and then we'll talk about the how.
Yeah. So I one of our very first events that I ran with a business that totally flopped was a business that did events, and we started in my parents' backyard. And I wanted to inspire people. I so we called it a night of inspiration, where we would bring in these poets and these artists and these dancers, and then at the very end, I do this like Tony Robbins esque talk, and people would leave inspired. And I remember one time I had a performer drop out. So they weren't able to show up to this event. And so I threw one of my staff members on stage and said, just play piano and just do something. Like just fill in the gap. And so they filled in the gap and they played piano. It was beautiful. I thought it was so nice. But the first thing we heard when the piano stopped, and the MC said, okay, our next speaker is so and so, or our next performer is so and so, was someone in the front row who said, oh, that's it. And it hurt us because it was like oh, that's all you're gonna show us, or that's it. It was kind of rude, to be honest, but we made an internal decision as a team at that time. We're never gonna have an oh, that's it moment where
I
people
love that.
come and they are unsatisfied. And this was unfair to my team member. Like, I just put them on stage. They are a trooper and were courageous enough to go fill in the gap of the time we had, but it was unintentional, it was unprepared, we didn't know what we were doing, and we were just trying to fill this space. In any event where you're just trying to fill the space with something, it's not intentional. I think you're missing an opportunity to really wow people. So we want people to say wow, oh, that's so cool, wow. We want them to have that experience. And so with white glove, what we mean is every moment is intentional. From the time that people fly in and get off their plane to get their luggage, to the point that they put their luggage to the attendant and get back on the plane. Everything is intentional. So what we do is we start to break down the big moments and the small moments of the entire experience. When somebody gets off the plane, they go get their luggage. Is there somebody there with their name? Right. I've growing up traveling a little bit, I always wanted that in my life. Like somebody with their name. Wow. I think I saw it in a movie once. And then the person got in a limo. So we have a limo pick up all of our attendees. And it's like, wow, this is really cool. And then inside the limo, like the limo on its own is pretty cool, but what happens on the ride from the airport to the retreat? Well, I have handwritten letters for my team speaking encouraging thoughts and ideas to the person that's custom to the attendee. So we
Wow.
do all of this research on the attendee. We listen to old podcasts. We say, wow, your dream was to do this when you got started, because we heard their origin story, and we like just kind of really prep them. And then like small things, we'll have like gum and water and mints and different things that they might need. So then when they get to, we always get like a beautiful retreat estate or mansion or something that we typically find on Airbnb or Vrbo. When they get into the space, immediately they're greeted with somebody right at the front door who gets their luggage for them, greets them by name. We're so excited to see you, brings them in. And then as we open the door, we have something called our celebration squad. So we have all of the people who are like, oh my gosh, Phil, you're here. Yes, giving hugs, high fives. Let me take your luggage to your room so that it's already there. We have people like sign some paperwork while, just to kind of register. Um, but then we have somebody walk them to their room. In their room, we have gifts laid out on the bed. We have something that we put under their pillow. So at night, when they go to sleep, they feel this, oh, this is kind of really cool. And it's like a little gift for them. So there's all these like moments of surprise and delight that we build in. When they go to their bathroom, we have every single um, hygiene supply you can think of in case you forgot that deodorant. And let me tell you, I've been there. So it's like, I don't want to lift my hands here. um,
Right.
So we have all of that. Like we try to think ahead. What could potentially ruin someone's experience, and how do we solve for that? Even though that's not our responsibility, it's 100% their responsibility to bring their own deodorant and their own toothpaste and all that stuff.
Right.
We just want to be the solution before there's even a problem that comes up. So that's just kind of a small breakdown of how we think.
Yeah.
Not only that, one thing I tell my team, I kind of have this 5 sense philosophy, which is all 5 senses um, um, should be considered when creating these moments. So as soon as they come in, we have candles lit, and it's this beautiful natural smell, not overwhelming. We have champagne we give them, or orange juice if they don't drink, so that their taste buds are selected. We have music in the background being played. All of these different senses that can be considered. We want to consider them at every single moment possible.
Yeah, you and I read from a very similar script, and who knows who influenced who. I know you've been watching me do a lot of the very same things that you just described
Yeah.
back in the early days, but I love the way that you've developed it. And because you're doing a high end event, you've got resources available to you to do things that maybe if you're a lower price point event, and those of you watching, Sean's doing something for a specific kind of clientele. He's trying to create a very specific event, but white glove doesn't have to mean expensive. It's thoughtful.
Yeah.
There Have you read that book, The Power of Moments?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
By
so
Chip and Dan.
Chip and Dan Heath.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
phrase that I quote often from them, not all moments are created equally. So you can't actually plan for every moment, even though you said that you do. So,
Well, so for every milestone moment,
okay,
and
yeah, define a
entering,
milestone moment.
yeah,
What's
entering the for the first time, that's a milestone moment. The first time you're eating that, so it's a lot of firsts. But
Yep.
then you start to get into routine of the event, and we also build in a lot of margin. So, for example, a
Mhm.
lot of mastermind events, they're very cerebral. So you're
Sure.
sitting in front of a computer with a speaker for 9 hours, and then like you're doing something in the evening. We actually only do 3.5 to 4 hours of content.
Love
And
it.
that's from like 9 to about 12 or 1. And we have like a lunch, work through lunch. The rest is all margin of connect, go have
Yeah.
fun, go do stuff. And I've had people say, what do I do? Because they're not used to, it's almost like a break in their pattern. It's like
Right.
go in the pool and have fun. Like let's enjoy each other. And what happens is the relationships that they're going to leverage later on start to actually get built, which is nice. So
Go back to your right statement. If you get the right people in the right room at the right time, is that the way you said it?
talking about the right things.
Talking about the right things. So that sounds to me like a formula for serendipity.
Mm,
Like, serendipity is this thing that seems like elusive, and we can talk about it. And I've talked about it for years, like expect serendipity. And if you're looking for it, you'll find it. But you're making it more likely because you are getting the right people and the right conversations at the right place in the right time, frankly, because they have to be in a point in time. And you're setting the conditions for that to happen where a breakthrough can occur, a potential partner or whatever, relationship they're looking for can happen because you've created those conditions. Talk a little bit more about that. Like, what have you learned about making serendipity possible?
Space. One of the biggest mistakes I did with some of our first events is we filled every moment. So
Mm,
people come to these retreats and don't feel like they actually retreated. They just did a lot of work while they were at these retreats. And so we do a lot to create in that margin and that space for something magical to happen. What I find is the things that you don't plan for, but the conversations that just happen because you sat next to someone during lunch or because you're rooming next to someone, right? We get these beautiful spaces with like 17 bedrooms. So everyone gets their own room, but you're rooming next to someone, or maybe there's like a shared bathroom situation or something. But it's that moment where you connect and it wasn't planned, but you meet that best friend, you meet that connect, like that next business bestie or that next JV partner or that next strategic partner. That that's the moments that we want to create for. Um, So a lot of what we teach our staff is that are helping us run these events is don't interrupt. If you
Mm,
see someone having a conversation and we're about to start a workshop, we have a sign that we do. And so it's just a peace sign, waving a peace sign. We do this peace sign wave, letting them see, hey, there's a session started. But if they're in a powerful set like conversation, let that conversation happen. Our content is not more important than the relationship they're building. And then they can make the decision to go to the workshop or to the speaker or whatever. So
yeah, your agenda is never more important than the agenda for the people that are there.
yeah,
I always encourage that, like, hey, these sessions, for us, they're recorded. I don't know if they're recorded in your situation, but there's other ways to access that information. There's
yeah,
no way to replace that spark of a conversation that just happened there in the hallway or out in the patio or wherever it's taking place. And I would never want to get in the way of that. But I
yeah,
love that you train your staff that way. I'm curious, Shawn. So it sounds like these retreats that you're describing are fairly small and intimate, like what, 40, 50 people, or what's the size?
under 50. So it's we've had I mean, our average is about 35 attendees. So we have a good group of people who typically stay at the estate, and then we do like day passes where people just drive into the estate for the each days. So about 35, 40. The the bigger, the less. It just becomes a different type of event.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. There's things that you're doing that there's no way you could do if you had 200 people.
yeah.
Or it would be harder. We'll put it that way. You'd need a bigger team, and you personally would be limited in your ability. So I wanted to ask that question though, too. What is your staff to attendee ratio typically?
So for the 35, we typically have about 5 or 6 people who are working as staff members who are either my staff or who are people who are volunteering. Like I've had my baby sister volunteering before as like a gopher, just go for that or go for this. You know, she's driving to Walmart or Target or whatever it's closest by to get whatever we need. But we have about a 5 to 6 staff members and volunteers, and then and maybe like 1 or 2 extra contractors. Like we have a photographer that we get that I wouldn't count as my staff, um, and a videographer. And then we have about 35 attendees. So what is that? Like a 5 to 1,
5 to
six
1,
to
and
one?
that's
Yeah,
not counting people behind the scenes like the cooks and the house cleaners and the chauffeurs and
sure.
those kinds of people. I'm assuming
Yeah,
those are all extras.
those
Uh,
are contractors.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But to that point, do you work hard to get them on the same page with the service mentality that you have, or do you have much control over those vendor relationships, those contractor relationships?
Yeah, we do for anybody who's on site. So, like, for the photographer, we do have a conversation beforehand of like, these are the moments that we're going to be creating that we want you to capture.
Mhm.
And this is what we don't want you to do. We don't want you to pose people. We don't want you to like, oh, can you do that again? Like, we
Mm.
want you to capture in moment things. We don't want you to interrupt. So we do a little bit of that with the like photographer on site, and with like our chef and servers, we do let them know this is the type of experience we want people to have. With the like the limo driver, typically there's no interaction between limo driver and person besides um like welcome, I'm
Okay.
taking you to your location. So we just hire a vendor for that.
They're not riding with other attendees in that limo? Is it one person at a time, or are they in
Um,
groups?
Sometimes. So, like, we do it depends on, like, when people are flying in.
Mhm.
We have the limo driver for a certain amount of time, and so we'll inform our attendees, "Make sure you arrive at this time to this time." We have had people arrive outside of those times, and then we'll just, like, pick them up outside of the limo, but we let people know the experience is from this time to this time.
If you can be here in 12 to
Yeah,
4 or whatever it is,
yeah,
we'll have a driver for you. But you're
yeah,
obviously, I'm guessing you don't give away all the secrets of
no,
what the experience is gonna be like. Of course,
no.
we're doing it right now, so if any of your future customers are listening, they're gonna hear about it, but
Yeah,
you've already mentioned a couple of lessons that you've learned the hard way, "Oh, no," or "Oh, that's it." You don't want
Yeah.
to repeat that. The cramming too much into the schedule. Is there anything else that you've learned the hard way that now is like an essential to the way that you do events?
Um, yes, vet. For our retreats, we have just this last retreat that we did. We had an attendee that we did not vet. We typically vet and pre-qualify and make sure they're the right person. But
Mm,
someone dropped out of the event last minute, so we had this extra spot, and we weren't gonna fill it. But then an attendee found out, like, "Oh, you have this extra spot. Can I invite someone?" So we're like, "Sure, we know the attendee. Let's just invite them. That's fine. Have them pay the remainder, or like a processing fee or whatever. Have them attend." And because we didn't do a lot of pre-qualification for the person, we just trusted them. Um, uh, I won't go into too many details, but there was a police report,
oh,
and there was a departure of that attendee the first night.
oh no.
So
Mm,
yeah, um, if you're doing an intimate experience, make sure you're pre-qualifying and vetting the people, and make sure they are the actual right person, and that they know what to expect. I think this person was. Um, I won't go into too much detail.
oh no.
Yeah.
I, I
So
I thought you were going to talk about your speakers when you
yeah,
said vet, but yeah, that makes total sense when you're doing an intimate experience. That if you want the right people in the room, that you've had conversations with them. It's interesting. Karen Height was on the show a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about the fact that she also gets on a call with everybody before approving them to come to the event, and then has another call after that to find out what their goals are so that she can provide her version of a white glove experience, which, again, these are things that you can do for smaller events. Her event's larger than yours, but still 100 people. You can do that. You can't do that with 2,000, 5,000 people like social media marketing world, or, traffic and conversion, or one of these other large conferences that's out there.
yeah,
So, um,
yeah.
yeah.
I
And
think with talking about pre-qualification, what we do, so our pre-qualification is an application with two phone calls. One is with myself, and one is with my actual what we call our experience curator, chief experience curator,
nice.
um, just to have two perspectives on the person. And then we will approve them, collect payment, and then we do three pre-event group calls, because we also want to see these people are being are intimately in this space for three nights, 4 days. um how do they play with each other? And we
Mm,
do a lot of like pre-group priming for the work that we're going to do at the retreat, but we're also paying attention to how do people interact with, and we do a lot of boundary and um, culture expectation setting. So, like some of the cultural things we'll say is everyone is welcome, all lifestyles, faiths, backgrounds, perspectives, etc. Kindness matters. So, if you disagree with someone, go disagree quietly somewhere else. That's okay. If you like with their lifestyle or something like that, their faith or whatever, um, you have every right to disagree, but do it in your room privately. Kindness will get you so much further in a relationship than anything else. So kindness matters, and a couple other things that we say. So that's the pre-qualification, and then I have no. I let people know if there are incidences. Um, Here are the things that we will not accept, and you will be removed immediately. And it's in our contract, and the person was removed and needed to be removed. So
yeah. Well, and those are the stories that help actually reinforce the culture. If you're willing to uphold the culture at that high of a standard, and it's not that person's necessarily a bad person, they just didn't follow the rules. And you know, every event has a point in time, I think, where you learn, hey, we've got to create certain boundaries to protect us and those who've come for the sake of the experience. And the
100%.
more intimate that you are, the more clear you have to be about those, even though it
Yeah.
seems like it should be the other way. There are
Yeah.
just different rules. So,
Yeah. And it wasn't I should clarify, um it wasn't a very egregious thing in regards to the police report. It was, hey, he departed, we don't want him back, can you just make sure to kind of do a circle around a couple times, was the actual police report. There wasn't anything egregiously done, just to clarify that.
yeah, no, that's fine. All right. So one of the things that you told me pre-call that you've begun doing is you've now are helping create events in other industries. So these experiences that you've created in your coaching business, you've had a lot of great success, but now you're moving into other spaces. I think you said real estate, and I know you work in AI and some other spots. What are some of the things that you've learned trying to translate these experiences? What are the hiccups and what are the things that just translated immediately, no problem?
Yeah. So I'm part owner of a company called Elite Real Estate Systems that's based in Omaha, Nebraska. We work with team leaders, broker owners on expanding their ancillary ownership. So most of the time, it's just agent commission that a team leader is making money from. But we help them have an insurance company, a mortgage company, a title company, so they can have multiple streams of revenue coming in and kind of have a whole ecosystem of services. So that's very different from the coaching and subconscious reprogramming work that we're doing in the coaching business in Abundance Worldwide. What we've started to do is translate a lot of the experience I've had over here and start moving it over here. So we are now we so they prior to my entering, they do a team building summit, which is a for team leaders, and it's a big in-person kind of conference. I think like 300 to 500 attendees. And so now I do a lot of these intimate experiences over here. What I'm trying to translate over is how do we create that intimate experience where everybody feels seen and heard and known, and we can still have that white glove experience at a kind of a larger attendee count. Um, and then on top of that, how do we incorporate retreats and how do we incorporate other things that we're doing over here with this industry? So to answer your question, a lot of the things that I'm personally working through right now is how do we create a white glove experience at a larger attendee size, with a it's a cheaper ticket. Over here we're charging $7,000 for a ticket. Over here we're charging I think $300 to $500 for a ticket. So a less budget. How do we still create a high ticket experience as if it was a high ticket white glove experience for them. Uh, yeah,
Welcome to my world. That's really more what larger events have to do. We don't normally have the budget of a $7,000 per person where you can do a lot of really amazing things. But you can still do amazing things. And I think one of the things I've learned, Sean, and I think you probably know this, is people are what makes the difference. You don't necessarily have to have all these extra accoutrements that you are able to do with all the gifts and the limos and all those kinds of things. You don't
yeah,
have to do that to make someone feel like they're special if your people are prepared and know how to create that kind of service experience. Like, Ritz Carlton. Yes, Ritz does have a lot of money that they're willing to spend on somebody, but it's the way the staff is trained to
yeah,
take care of you from the moment you step onto their property. Every single person is trained. And I think that can be done at any event of
yeah.
any size.
And what's really cool, I think, just the fun part for me is they've already done a great job at building like a client base and a fan base of attendees. And now we just get to level it up, which is really cool. And we're not starting from a place of scratch, but they're an incredibly fun group, and now I'm able to just kind of have fun and kind of play in that area of a larger 300 to 500 person attendee event.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's the same kind of challenge. We'll have to circle back maybe in a year or two after
Uh,
you've done a couple of them and see what lessons you've learned as you've translated that over.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so we're coming to a conclusion here, Sean. I know you've told me beforehand the best way for people to follow you is right there on the screen, anywhere on social. Hey, Sean Q is the way to follow you. But what are some closing thoughts that you've got for those who are at whatever stage of producing events? What's something? Let's do this. What's something you wish somebody had told you when you were starting to put on your first couple of events that you've had to learn the hard way, and you would like to impart to somebody who's earlier in their journey? And then I'm going to ask you another question after that.
okay. So I think there's like I'm gonna give you a couple of answers, and I'm gonna do it real quick. Number one, people don't come for the content. Primarily, they come for the people or the community. That the content is kind of what attracts them, but the community is what's sticky and why people keep coming back again and again and again. And although I think like social media marketing world does a phenomenal job with their content, um, and so like I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to go to all these attendees or attend all these sessions. On top of it, the thing I'm most excited by is all the people I get. Like it feels like it's a family reunion. Feels
Yes.
like I'm meeting all my friends again, and it's like, oh, this is so fun. Uh, so the community is what creates the stickiness. And going back to my first events, I put so much content in, and people just came to be offline to be around the people that I was bringing together. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be there's a framework for it. You don't have to figure it out all yourself. So we have a 7-step framework for thinking about how we run events. The first, I'll just kind of break it down real fast. Logistics, speakers, marketing, communication, the at event experience, sponsorship, and revenue opportunities. Those are the 7 things. If you can like get clear about what you're doing on those 7 things, you have a pretty good event happening. So
Yeah, and those would basically be the same ingredients that I talk about in my book of core ingredients that go into an event. I have a slightly different way of expressing it, but um, you can have those ingredients. The difference between a good and a great event, though, is how well you do those things and how well you mix them together for the experience that you're trying to create.
yeah.
All right,
And
here's my
if
other.
anything, here's my last answer is what do I wish I had beforehand? I wish I had your book.
Ah!
Because that would make it so much easier.
I wish I would have written it back then. There's actually certain ways in which you helped to write it, Shawn, because you helped to create those experiences. Even though I don't know if I ever call you out by name. So here's a different question. Where you are today, you and I are both the kind of people that know that we've achieved certain things, but there's also places that we still want to go, right? We're not done learning, we're not done growing. Who is someone that you would love to sit down with who has accomplished great things at events, or an event owner or orchestrator that you'd love to sit down, and what are a couple questions that you would love to ask them about their event?
That's a great question. Something I'm really passionate about right now is acquisitions and mergers. So I would love to have a sit down dinner with somebody who has had their event acquired,
Hmm.
or has merged their event with another event or company or whatever. Um, and I would probably just inundate them with questions about what was the process, how did you get it valued, what was the valuation process, what was the process to getting it prepared for acquisition, did you build it to get acquired, or did you build it and then the acquisition opportunity came up? Um, what is life post acquisition? Because events can become a baby, so it's like how like I'm giving my baby away. What is life like after that? What's your involvement post acquisition? Because a lot of times it can be built off the personal brand of the owner or the founder of the event, and so how do you continue to maintain the growth when that person is removed? Um, those are a lot of the questions I think right now I'm really interested in knowing what we're doing with the real estate company, which is building it for $1 billion valuation and acquisition in the future. So that's kind of where I'd sit and play.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation because, especially the idea of merging, whether it's two businesses together or 2 or 3 events together that's becoming something new, that process is one that has to be done carefully. It's not just the business side of it. Yes, the business side has to be looked at, but the cultures coming together, and even maybe the purposes and the types of people that come to those events. Now, we'll give like a really extreme example. If the event that you did in coaching and the event you do in real estate were to try to become the same event, that would be really tough. That'd be oil and water, right?
Yeah.
That's logical. You wouldn't do that. But what if they were somewhat closer to each other and it looks like, oh, these might be able to fit together, but without a lot of real careful thought, it could end up being a terrible experience for everybody. And so
Yeah.
I think that's you're wise to want to sit down with some people. And I've got someone I'll tell you about offline that you should talk to.
Oh, I'm
Um,
excited.
yeah, I just occurred to me while we were talking. All right, the last thing we're going to do, Shawn, is I like to always end with a signature sign off, which is my saxophonic moment. So, what I would love for you to do is think for just a half second on 3 thoughts that come to mind from our conversation today. One of them needs to be emotional, and just
Hmm.
say them in three words. I'm going to write them down, and I'm going to play you a song.
Hmm. Um, three thoughts in three words.
Just three words, three
Okay.
words, and one of them is emotional, but that kind of
Um,
summarize what we.
growth,
Mm.
community, and the emotional one would be gratitude. And gratitude for your friendship. I know there's more than three words, but gratitude for your friendship, for your mentorship, for your leadership. I have learned so much
Mm.
being under your wing, watching how you run events, how you think about events, and it has made me a better person. So gratitude.
Well, I will just say I'm grateful. So many of the things that you've said, I'm like proud because like this sounds like I could have said them, and so
That is the
it's so cool.
highest
Um,
compliment you could give me, Phil. That is amazing.
well, it's a compliment to me too because you've internalized things I've told you, and you've gone beyond. And that as a coach or as a leader, when you give someone something and they go beyond what even you've done, that's like the highest form of compliment there could possibly be. So I'm super proud to know you and to see what you've done, and can't wait to watch more. Like you're not done. So in some ways you're just getting started. So all right, here comes the song that's for Shawn Q. The Shawn Q growth song. Yeah, well, here we go. Shawn, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thanks for your friendship. Folks, go follow Shawn at Hey Shawn Q wherever you're on social media. You'll find him there. I assume almost everywhere. And everybody have a great day. Follow up with me if you've got any questions. Ciao.